and production of food are its green parts. You must have read that the leaves are the site of photosynthesis. Thus, the leaves are the site of production of sugars and are called the source. Carbon dioxide and water combine to form sugar. Source is often far from the site where energy is most needed, which happens to be the growing parts such as the root tips, buds, petiole, etc. These sites of utilization of sugars are called the sink. Special transport systems become necessary to move substances across long distances to ensure transportation at a faster rate. Water, minerals and food generally move by mass or bulk flow system. In the mass flow, all substances, whether in solution or in suspension, are swept at the same pace. The bulk movement of substances through conducting or vascular tissues of plant is called translocation. Source is an organ that produces more sugars than that is required, and sink is an organ that consumes sugars for its growth and storage. The accepted mechanism needed for the translocation of sugars from source to sink is called the pressure flow hypothesis. Let us have a closer look at how the food is translocated in the plant body. There are two kinds of vascular tissues in the plants: the xylem that transports water and dissolved minerals, and phloem which transports carbohydrates, mainly sucrose. Although glucose is the product of photosynthesis, it is not suitable for transport because it is a chemically active reducing sugar, while on the other hand, sucrose is a non-reducing and soluble sugar. Phloem sap comprises of water, sugars, amino acids, organic acids, some cations and anions. Phloem cells are connected end-to-end by way of sieve plates. These perforated structures create direct connection between the cytoplasm of connected phloem cells. The newly synthesized sucrose sugar is then moved into companion cells and into the living phloem sieve tubes by active transport. Active transport requires the expenditure of energy. It helps to remember that the phloem is located just adjacent to the xylem, which helps in water transport from the roots to other parts of the plant. This proximity has a significant consequence. The actively supported influx of sugar into the phloem results in passive movement of water from the xylem, where the sugar concentration is low, into the phloem, where the sugar concentration is high. This passive movement of water forms a concentration gradient which dilutes the solution by way of process called osmosis. The diffusion of water into the phloem creates a region of high osmotic pressure in the region around the sugar source. As osmotic pressure in the phloem sieve tube increases, the fluid is driven away from the sugar source. The sap moves through the phloem. Think of plant parts where energy expenditure is required. The identified areas around the growing root and shoot tips, buds, petiole require energy the most and are called the sink. At the sink, incoming sugars are actively transported out of the phloem and removed as complex carbohydrates. In the sink, as the sugar concentration in the phloem drops, so does the water influx from the xylem. Low levels of water in the xylem creates areas of low pressure in the phloem near the sugar sink. With high pressure areas near the sugar source and low pressure areas near the sugar sink, fluids in the phloem are driven to flow down the pressure gradient from source to sink. In this way, sugars made in the leaves are transported from the leaves to roots where growth is taking place. In some plant cells, a special protein called the transport protein located on the membrane of the vacuole called tonoplast facilitates the movement of sucrose from sink cell cytoplasm into the vacuole at the expense of ATP. This reduces the concentration of sucrose in the sink cells, which enhances the movement of sucrose from phloem cells through companion cells and into sink cells. All these events produce a continuous flow of water from xylem to phloem and back to xylem. It helps to remember that the water leaving phloem moves up the xylem due to transpiration and not due to water potential difference between xylem and phloem.